Hi everybody, Michael Davis here. Welcome to Bone2Pick, and we are extraordinarily fortunate today to be coming to you from the University of Miami and the Frost School of Music. And you don't get the whole panoramic in here, but it's an amazing facility, and we are very fortunate to be able to sit down with our Artist of the Month, the great John Daversa. John is the chair of studio music and jazz here at the Frost School of Music. He is an internationally respected trumpet player, composer, arranger, producer, band leader, and certainly educator. He's a 3-time Grammy Award nominee, as well as receiving many other awards. His myriad recording credits include Fiona Apple, Burt Bacharach, Michael Bublé, Sheryl Crow, Joe Cocker, Herbie Hancock, the Bob Mintzer Big Band, Yellow Jackets, just to name a few. His festival appearances include the Hamburg Music Festival, Java Jazz, Monterey, Montreal, Montreux, and Playboy Jazz Festivals. He has degrees from UCLA, California Institute of the Arts, and a doctorate from USC. He has released 5 CDs as a solo artist with his John Daversa Progressive Big Band and John Daversa Small Band. His current release, check it out immediately. Wobbly Dance Flower has the coolest arrangement of Donna Lee you're ever going to hear. And it features the great Bob Mintzer. And speaking of Bob, it's where I met John initially. I've always been a fan of his playing and writing, but I was very fortunate to do a few projects with Bob and with John. So it's really a pleasure. John, with your schedule, thank you for taking time out to be with us today.
Oh man, it's my pleasure. It's so good to see you, Mike.
Great to see you, John, and can't wait for this. So let's jump in. You grew up, to me, in a great place to grow up as a musician in Southern California. And of course, your dad is a legendary trumpet player himself, Jay Daversa, who was on the Stan Kenton Band and now worked extensively in the studios in LA. Maybe talk a little bit about how you got started with the trumpet, what it was like growing up with your dad, and just maybe some of your early influences.
Sure. Well, Dad was certainly the first one, and such an incredible influence to have as a kid if you're going to be a musician. And my mom too. My mom's a great musician. And he was a studio player there in LA. We actually moved from LA when I was about 7 years old.
Oh, okay.
And we moved to where my mom's family lives in Oklahoma, a small little town.
Oh, wow, okay.
Ada, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And some great musicians there that you just never would even know. But that's where I really got into music, was when we moved to Ada.
Oh, okay.
And I started playing piano, and the first thing I ever did was sing. And I always tell my students, I'm so fortunate that when I started reading music, I did it as a singer. And so there was no fooling around with what those pitches were. I couldn't press down a key or a button and have the sound come out. I had to know what those pitches were.
Yeah.
So when it came time to play the trumpet, I knew what it was supposed to sound like, and I think that really helped me when I started sight reading, just to have that little bit of a head start.
Sure, yeah.
So I started playing in Oklahoma, and actually during that time, my dad was going back to LA to work in the studios quite a bit. Most of the summers he'd be out there doing TV shows and everything else. So I was so insecure playing the trumpet with him around. So that actually enabled me to practice my behind off when he was gone.
Very cool.
And then he'd come back and say, oh, that's getting better. And I started to gain my confidence so I could play with him and play. But he was always very mindful of that dynamic too, that family influenced the teacher, and so he would just kind of be around for me to ask questions when I would need to ask questions.
Oh, that's sweet.
Really hip character.
That's always an interesting dynamic when the parent teacher, to a student, to a child student. That's awesome. And I'm sure your dad hipped you to all the right people. That must have been a great thing too. Like you're getting all the great, in addition to his influence, but getting the right info early on.
Yeah. Well, I remember him playing Sketches of Spain in the house when we were in Oklahoma, and he just put it on and he said, "John, listen to this," and he pointed out to me how Miles was playing so in the low register and the mid register. It's all about sound and nothing else. It was just about following the sound and the honesty and the integrity of the sound. I remember that moment very clearly. Something clicked there. But at the same time, my mom was such a great influence in that regard too, because she was playing Aretha Franklin, and she's a classical piano player, so she's always playing Chopin and Beethoven and
Nice.
Rachmaninoff on the piano, and so all these sounds were going in always, and then of course their friends were musicians, so the people that are coming over for dinner to hang out, what are they talking about? They're talking about music.
Yeah.
They're talking about the business of music and complaining about it. And, so I'm hearing all of this as a kid, just digesting and absorbing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think the singing thing is so incredible. You know, I wasn't fortunate enough to study with him, but the great legendary trombone teacher Emory Remington, they always said, what were lessons like with him, and they would say, well, he just sang in my ear the whole time, and like you just believed in that, and you know, like you're saying, you learn pitch. That's very, very cool, and not surprising to hear that that's part of your early growth. Let's talk about maybe your college years a little bit. Quite an impressive list of degrees and grade schools, as I mentioned, UCLA and then Cal Arts, and then of course you ended up teaching at USC. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But what was that period in your life like for you?
Sure. Well, I went to UCLA for my undergraduate degree, and I was very much into jazz already at that point. But interestingly, when I look back, I wanted to go to a school where I wasn't going to study jazz, because I felt like if I was going to go to school to study something, I should study something I know nothing about. So UCLA had a really nice, a really good classical composition department. And I also wanted to stay in LA because my friends were there, and at that moment there was a certain comfort with that. Sometimes I wonder if that was the right decision or not, but I mean, everything turned out fine.
Clearly, I think it was.
But I studied with some great teachers there, Mark Carlson and Ellen Barkin, and was exposed to some new music and some classical orchestration that. And able to write for all these. And when I was there, I would write for everybody's recital for free. You know, like, you got a recital, you play oboe, let's do it. and so I got to be known as someone who would write for everybody.
Oh, wow,
and so I learned so much during that period. I just wrote all the time. I just wrote, and just had a ball.
Nice.
Yeah. So and at the same time, I was playing around town a little bit, and starting to establish some fire in that way.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. And then did you go directly to Cal Arts then for your master's degree after UCLA?
No, you know what? So I went about 4 years, and I stopped before I graduated. I think I had 2 general education requirements to finish, and I got to the point where, you know, I'm not supposed to say this, but it meant nothing to me anymore to go to these classes that just didn't seem to have anything to do with what I wanted to do.
Right.
And I remember walking to the building for one of these classes, and just there was this magnetic polarity, opposite of magnetic, just repelling me away from the building. And I just kept walking, and that was it. That was it. And at that point, I started my big band, and just worked in LA and taught a lot and scrambled and tried to put it together. And eventually I decided to take this gig in Europe as a musical director for a large production show. And the guy called me up and said, because I was starting to become known as a big band leader, and said, do you know anybody, can you recommend anybody to do this show in Europe? And I said, I don't know, And then I called him, and I thought about it that night. If I don't do something like this right now, I might never do it. And I was very saturated with teaching at that moment, because it was mostly what I was doing to pay the bills, and a little bit out of balance. So I said, let's do it. So I called him up and I said, give me this certain amount of money and make me the musical director, and I'll do it. And he called me on my bluff and said, okay, you got it. And I went, okay. So I went to Europe, which was supposed to be a 9-month tour, and I ended up meeting my wife about 2 weeks into it, and that was wonderful. Ended up staying for 3 years, and that was an interesting moment for me, because to that point I'd just been full of fire and creation and spark and drive and musically. And I got doing this show, and I was policing everybody to play the show the same way every time. I had to play this show the same way every time, and about 2 weeks into it, the fire went out. It was like the best of times and the worst of times.
Oh, wow.
And I was trying to practice. I mean, that was before iPods and such, and I was going to the record stores and trying to just buy every CD I could imagine, and find that inspiration. Could not write, could not find it.
Wow.
So just had to kind of let go of that. And at the same time, I was finally making money, so that association was an interesting...
Were you writing as well for the production? Or
a little bit, I'd come in and, there would be guest artists that would come in and write out their tune, but nothing all that creative.
Right.
So I say I lost that spark in 2 weeks, and the other thing that I realized that I missed was teaching. Like 2 weeks into it, I realized I really miss interacting with students and finding those musical voices and helping people hear their musical fruitions. And I said, well, when I get back, I'm going to go back and finish my degrees and teach at the college level, because I really want to work with people that are very serious about what they want to do. I think that's where I have the most to offer.
Mm-hmm.
And can offer the most service.
Mm-hmm.
So after 3 years of this tour, then I came back and I had to go back to UCLA and finish as an adult, and I had to go into these 300-seat lecture courses. I took geology and a math course at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the art history of China. But it was interesting because I came back, and of course I called everybody I used to work for in LA, and they said, "John, we're so happy you're back." But there was no work because they had already moved on to their stuff after 3 years. So it took a while to get back into the scene, and so all I had time to do was take this geology class. And I was looking for inspiration too. So I would go to these professors' office hours every offering, and I would just try and figure out, like, why does he like this bow tie so much, and he loves these rocks, So I was just trying to pick up that energy of their passion for their fields, and that really helped me.
Wow.
And so I graduated, and then I decided to go to Cal Arts, where David Roydstein was teaching, and I'll never forget this. He's been such a wonderful mentor to me as well, and they actually offered me the job to teach trumpet there before I went to Europe, and then I decided to go to Europe, and I called him up and said, "Hey, I'm looking to go to school," and he spent 2 hours on the phone with me, just telling me every positive and negative thing, as it reflects to me, about going to Cal Arts. And I said, "This is the family I want to be a part of."
Yeah.
And later I found that he was even on sabbatical when I called him. So I had such a great time at Cal Arts, and being around those creative, imaginative minds really helped me get that light back and that fire back. And I realized that it was during that period I realized I can make plenty of money and do the music that I want to. It's not a separate thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a psychological definition that I had to clear out of my head. So that was a few years later that I went to Cal Arts.
Yeah, very cool. So now, when you started the Progressive Big Band, obviously you'd been writing for Big Band previous to that, but so is that around that same time period? Were you at Cal Arts at the time, so you were...
Before that, well, the first iteration was right after I dropped out from UCLA.
Okay.
I figured that was a platform where I could really create in terms of composition and also as a player. So that was about 1996, I think, and I had it going for a while, and we put out a record, a live record, and then I went to Europe, and then when I came back, I started the second iteration with the players that are in the band now, and that was more than a decade ago now.
Yeah. For those of you who have not heard this record, get it today. Kaleidoscope Eyes Music of the Beatles. It is the coolest stuff. The writing is so creative and so cool, and man, I've gotten more familiar with it just kind of doing a little prep work for this interview, and it's beautiful. I mean, it's so interesting, and the colors and the vocals and woodwinds and it's not typical big band stuff, but yet it has all of that in it as well. So talk a little bit. I know we're jumping ahead and we'll come back to some other stuff, but talk a little bit about that project, because I just found it to be really, and you got, we're all Grammy nominations for that project, both from the ensemble and your writing. It's really tremendous.
Well, thank you for that, Mike. That means the world to me. And the thing I think I'm most proud about with that particular project, it involves so many brilliant musicians and and production workers, and everybody just was all in on it because it was just all about the music. It was such a community effort, and I swear when we recorded it live in LA, and we did that first performance and all the prep and all the work, and because it wasn't about any one individual, it's just like this living collective organism. And, we're about to play that first note, and the energy was so, and there's a live audience there. I thought the whole place was going to levitate. Just a certain spirit of it, and I think that's what's on the recording too.
It really comes across that way. It's remarkable.
Yeah. So I mean, I just with that album, I gave myself free license to create, and I didn't restrict myself to any particular instrumentation or any other limitation. And I just said, well, somehow it's going to happen. So I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's going to happen, and it did.
Yeah, it certainly did. Yeah, it's a remarkable project. How long did it take you? That's a tremendous amount of writing. What was your time frame in terms?
It was quick, with our schedules. Most of it was written on a plane. To be honest, it's traveling from one place to the other. That's the place where I had that dedicated focus to really just dig in, and over the course of 2-3 months, it was there. Just grabbing 10 minutes at a time, and then maybe an hour here, and started to piece together.
Yeah.
Started to feel the whole thing. I had so many, with the Beatles catalog, I wanted to do every tune, and I had lists of categories of how I was gonna do. Okay, one from each record I was gonna do, or just this one era, and they just started coming. I would listen to a particular song in the middle of the night with headphones on, because that's the time that I had, and just really fall in love with the music and the production and all of it once again. And then I would just let it go, and then I would just start hearing it back in my head in a different way, with my own vocabulary and filter and personality. And so it just came. The songs came one by one in time. I tell you, I was trying to think about one of the next tune to do at one point. I was on a plane, and this guy was sitting just catty-corner to me, and I could see what he was watching he was watching a movie on his computer, and he's watching, I don't know what the movie was, but it was like a war thing, and people were getting just messed up, and it was really gory, and there were kids on the plane. I was thinking, man, maybe that's not the best choice right now. Is there something else? And I sweat, and then he must have heard my thought or something, and he stopped it. And then I felt like, okay, I can mind control this guy. I was just kind of playing a game with myself. And I said, okay, you will go to your iTunes now and pick a tune for me for the next the Beatles thing. And I swear to you, he goes to iTunes. And he has every, you can see the thumbnails, the icons, he's just scrolling through it. He's got every Beatles record on there. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on? I said, okay, well, whatever, if he chooses to, pick a tune, then that's the tune that I'll do.
Wow.
And, it seemed like forever. He's just scrolling back and forth. And then finally he went to Here Comes the Sun, played it. I said, okay, got it, message received. Wow. And he must have heard maybe 20 seconds of it, then stopped it, got out of his iTunes, went right back to his boring movie, But so many of those kind of divine moments happen with the creation of that record. That's one of my favorite
arrangements on that project, too.
Thank you.
Wow, what a story. If you get the sense I'm going to win the lottery, you just let me know at any point, all right? Yeah. I'm open to
I have my moments, too.
That's great, and let's talk a little bit now about the small band.
Sure.
You have the new release that features Bob Mintzer, and we'll talk about Bob as well. But you've done now two or three projects with the small band.
Yeah.
And talk about the new
Sure.
project. It has a super cool arrangement of Donna Lee, as I mentioned earlier, as well as many.
Thanks. Yeah, I wanted to do a quick follow-up after Kaleidoscope Eyes, which was just such a massive undertaking, and to do something with a small band seemed appropriate. And I always wanted to do something with Bob, and so to collaborate with him musically. And so I just called him up, and we came up with 2 days that he happened to be available and free. And so I just put him in the calendar, and it, just a few months out, and then I knew I needed to write this music. And I ended up writing just kind of these riff-oriented tunes just the week before, and majority of them again on the plane. I was just singing little melodies in my phone to try and remember them, you know, and just not trying to think about it too much. Just really, and also because I knew we weren't going to have any rehearsal, I wanted to create platforms where the whole band and especially Bob could just really feel free and just do his thing and not be restricted by too much thinking. And so, you know, there's some rhythm changes tunes on there and the blues and it just unfolded so naturally and the title, you know, I got to involve my daughter. At that point she was 6 years old, and one of the first tunes I was starting to write, I came home and I said, I'm writing this tune and I just can't think of the right title. And without blinking an eye, she said, "Oh, Daddy, call it Wobbly Dance Flower." And I thought that was the most brilliant thing I'd ever heard. And if you hear the music, it just matches the vibe of that tune so much.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then she drew some flowers, and then it turned. And then she actually, did a lot of the illustrations. Well, all of the illustrations on the record. So we got to share that together. She had a ball doing it.
That's great.
Yeah. But we just played a couple nights at the Blue Whale in L.A. Last weekend, and got to stretch all this music, and it's just a blast, so much fun.
Yeah.
And to get to collaborate with, I know you want to talk about Bob too. He's one of just such a dear human being and a dear friend and a musical hero of mine and a mentor and someone that has been such a beacon for me. And there's so many parallels. I don't know how conscious I am of it or not, but I just follow just about everything that he's done. He plays the electric, the EWI, and I play the EVI, and he has his big band, of course, and then I've got my big band. He's the chair of jazz studies at the Thornton School of Music at USC. I'm the chair of the department here at Frost, and on and on and on.
Yeah.
So, he's certainly someone that I just admire so greatly, and he's just such a generous, humble leader, and the way that he treats people is the way that I appreciate how people should be treated. So,
I think that's a really excellent point. I mean, I echo everything you just said. He's one of the most influential people in my life in terms of being a musician. I think he's a genius. I mean, he's just brilliant, and his music speaks to me so profoundly, and as I know it does with you. But I think that's such a great point. I've learned just so much about how to lead a band or a session or treat people, and you're absolutely right. It's kind of understated in a way, because you focus so much on what a brilliant musician he is, but it's also that side of it's also completely there.
Yeah.
So it's a really great point.
Yeah, you can see in his band, every member would do anything for him, and that's not an accident.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about your move to Miami and what's going on here. I mean, this is one of the handful of greatest music schools in the world. Continues to be that, and it's just I'm really excited to be here. I've never gotten to be in the buildings and the campus, and it's really special. So. Talk about, I know you were teaching at USC before you came here, maybe a little bit about what that transition was like,
sure.
and also about what you're doing here in terms of chairing the program.
I've been teaching adjunct at USC for about 2 years after I finished my doctorate there, and I loved being there. I mean, all the faculty there with Peter Erskine and Russ Fronte and Alan Pasquale, I'm Bob, and
it's pretty.
And they're all just such sweethearts and such generous souls. It's and just so many badasses, and humble at the same time.
Well said. Yeah, that's what it is.
And actually, I taught for 2 years. I had my first full-time position at Cal State Northridge right after that.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
And it was a really hard. I mean, it seems like a no-brainer, right? To go take this full-time position from an adjunct, and it was hard for me to leave USC and all my family there. But then I went to Cal State Northridge in the Jazz Studies Department. What a special program that is. Gary Pratt and Matt Harris are there. Such heart in that program, such great direction, and I was very, very happy there. It was a very special 2 years for me. The students are so dialed in and so hungry and so talented. And then and I was doing a lot of things in LA just work wise, so I was perfectly comfortable. And then this position at Frost School of Music kind of came out of the blue. One of my other dearest mentors, Shelley Berg, sent me an email and said, "Hey, there's this position out here. Would you consider interviewing for it?" And at the moment, I felt like, yeah, I'd love to come see you, and see what's going on and see the program and also get to see what's going on inside the halls here.
Yeah.
And then my life changed just within about 2 days. I came out here and saw what was happening, and I could see where I could affect, and make this rich program even stronger at this transition moment where, the chair of the department for 40 years was Whit Seidner.
Of course, yeah.
Who is the lifeblood of why this is such a strong and incredible program. So to pick up where he left off and take things into this next generation was exciting to me, and to try and input even more creativity and imagination and some of the intuitive elements to making music along with the craft and the discipline and the method. That was exciting to me, to create a community here that was strong, where people nurture one another and push each other and challenge in positive ways. Mm-hmm. So that was an exciting challenge for me. A lot of what I learned when I was at Cal State Northridge, I wanted to see if we could do that here. So it all happened real fast. I was so fortunate to be offered the gig when I came to the interview, and that was that. And my wife was so open to it, and my daughter was only 2 years old, so it was a good time to try and make a move like that for the family. So this is my 5th year here, and I tell you that the faculty is just world class.
Yeah.
World class. Brian Lynch, Gary Lindsay, Gary Keller, everyone, and the students are at such a high level, and what Shelley Berg, our dean, has been able to do in terms of resources and platforms for the students is really remarkable. That certainly is one of the reasons why I'm here is because of him, and now we're going forward. But it is abundant soil. It's mm-hmm. very abundant soil, and I'm so grateful to be here with my colleagues and my students, making great music and seeing what the future holds for all these students in the ever-changing music business.
Yeah.
Which is why you're here today to speak to some of our students.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very honored and looking forward to that. And I'm sure you talk about Whit Seidner. I remember when I was a student at Eastman, they had a Montreux College night, and they had North Texas, Eastman, and Miami's band. And
I've heard the legend of
Miami pretty much cleaned everybody's clock. It was everybody, all the bands sounded great, but boy, I remember the impact of Miami's band. It was just like, whoa, it was just really special. And I know he would be, I'm sure, is extremely proud of where you're taking the program. And it seemed, knowing Shelley a little bit, and brilliant musician and also just a genius of a guy, knows how to vision and direction and all those things that he possesses.
Great vision.
The combination of having you chairing the department and he's the dean, that is hard to find. And the fact that he's such a great musician and looking at it from that perspective has got to be a nice place for you to be in terms of your boss, if you want to refer to him that way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how amazing is it to be in my position to be the chair of the jazz department, and your dean is a previous chair of a jazz department.
Right.
So he knows all of it.
Yeah.
He knows. So I feel so well supported, and I feel like whatever our students can dream up, we can figure out a way to do it with both mine and his support.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you kind of a specific question, and I asked this, we had Justin DeChocho on a couple of years ago, and we talked about it, and I'd be interested in getting your perspective on this. One of the things that I got I went to Eastman, but the things that I got even more probably than the instruction, which was very good, was the ensemble experience and the playing with, back then there was no undergraduate jazz degree at Eastman, there is now. So I was a classical major, but I would play in jazz ensemble and combo and brass quintet and all these different things. And that to me is the single best thing that I got out of a very good experience and a good program and everything. But if I were to pick one thing, that would be it. And now I think it's great, the undergraduate jazz program. It opens up a lot of possibilities for young students. But one of the things that I'm cautious about is I see a lack of experience in terms of these other ensemble experiences. And I'm just curious how you look at that and what your perspective on that might be. While I think it's great, and as we know, it gets more competitive every day in this business, so being focused and driven is super important. But also, like, I know even at schools, even at Eastman and in New York at Manhattan and various schools, sometimes you can't play in the orchestra because you're an undergraduate jazz major, so you're over here in this world and the classical people are over here. But anyway, just curious from your perspective, being here and also just as an educator in general, and being a brass player as well.
Well, the way it is here, it's certainly set up so that we encourage every student to go across department and genre.
Oh, cool.
I mean, that's just critical at this point. I think there are very few artists, more and more, that are just focusing on one particular niche. It's certainly possible, and if that is your complete passion, it'll probably work for you. But also, the other thing that's changing is that the students are interested in so many different styles and genres and philosophies of music because there's so much more exposure. So that's something that is very highly encouraged, and that's a philosophy across the school, that everybody take part in everything they possibly can, and
that's great.
Certainly in the ensembles, and also just in terms of entrepreneurship classes. So everybody's thinking about how are you going to promote yourself, how are you going to build your brand, your website, what's going to really make you special from all of the other parts of the marketplace. So I mean that's critical.
Yeah, that's great to hear that here in Miami, in addition to the strength of the jazz program, you're encouraged to be in other aspects of the music program in general. We have a lot of young folks, especially brass players, who watch our interviews every month, which I'm very grateful to all of them. They would love to know, what do you look for in young players that are coming or would like to come to the University of Miami and study with yourself and the great brass faculty that you have here?
Well, looking for badasses. Obviously it's you play your instrument, and that common denominator is there's so many players that we get to hear these days that are so accomplished and really can get around the horn very well. And that's in terms of just technique, but also understanding of the genre, have a good time and good vocabulary. Certainly have listened and check out all of the repertoire. But also just important to me, because I'm really stressing community here in our department. I want to see people that are also showing that they're driven and motivated in terms of creating for themselves. I want people that are putting out videos. I want people that are creating, a web series about what they're doing. I want people that are writing. I want people that are infectiously positive and are not in it for the ego, but actually to push us all forward at the same time, not just one individual. Those are the people that, when they take a whole group with them, because they're just so impactful, they just ooze that kind of brilliance. So, I'm looking for people with vision. We're all looking for people with vision and potential. Obviously it's not all going to be there yet, and it's not all there with any of us. It's all potentiality, but you can see it when that potential is just kind of written on the wall in terms of their own makeup, the vision and the drive. Yeah. To think outside of the box. Okay, is this someone that's going to come in and be most interested in practicing for 8 hours in a practice room and not really interacting with the community, or even developing a an outside career for themselves other than, just doing what they do. And that's fine too. It's not a judgment on that. I'm just saying that that's not really a good fit for here. We want people that are really looking outside the box and have a different kind of creativity and imagination.
Wow, so well said. I'm ready to apply. Where's the application?
Right on.
That's great. This is a question. See if I can frame it the right way. It was so interesting checking out your website and seeing all that you're doing. John Daversa small band, Progressive big band, University of Miami, the concert jazz band's playing here, playing there. You're out guesting at conducting all state bands. You're writing. You're doing all these things. How do you approach that in terms of wearing so many hats? And I think probably to you now you're John Daversa. That's what you do. But do you have like do you kind of try to balance things? Do you keep a time management idea behind things? Do you kind of go with let you answer that?
Yeah. I have no idea. I've gone through trying to find the grid to place this all on, and it's just a constant evolution of balance. Because there's I've got the husband part, I've got the father part.
Right.
There's fulfilling the artist part of me. That if I don't fulfill that part, then I'm not a very good teacher. And if I'm not teaching that, then somehow I'm not that great of an artist either. They feed each other. So they're all things that I need to do, but finding the balance is just an ever-going process. And one time I did this exercise, and I have my students do this. That's kind of a cool exercise to do in terms of it's almost like a manifestation exercise. But you make a list of everything that you want to do. And maybe it's playing and writing my music, and it's teaching at the university, and it's having a family. You just kind of map it out, and then you map out your ideal calendar year. And so I go on iCal, and I really make it specific. Okay, I'm playing the Playboy Jazz Festival on this day. It's at this time. Here's my rehearsal. Just dramatize the whole thing. And here are my classes I'm teaching at the university. This is when I take my vacation. I'm going to produce this record for whomever it's going to be, and we're in pre-production here. We're writing, we're doing this, and then here's where we're actually tracking. All very specific.
Wow,
here's my little
great,
tour,
yeah.
As detailed as possible, because that's what makes it real. And it could be next year that this ideal calendar. It could be in 10 years. Whatever you feel like it feels comfortable to you. And so in terms of that balance, you also, like I said, map out the actual vacation time. And you try and balance out where you think you need to balance where things are out of whack. And when I did that, if not everything, came true that I put on that calendar. I did this 10 years ago. Things that I thought were so far-fetched.
Right.
I put it on the calendar, it came true. So it's the only difference now is I'm planning, like 3-4 years in advance as opposed to 4 weeks, and trying to really, when is it appropriate for me to not do that, and take care of everything else I want to take care of, and just have stupid fun through the whole process. And and with the projects that I want to make now, that's always changing. I want to make projects that are of significance to our community and our culture and our society. It's not just, music is the thing that gets me up in the morning, and I'm still thinking about it when I go to sleep, but it's more than even that. So as we get older, we start to have those larger purpose endeavors in our heads too.
Sure. That's so well said, John, and I think I couldn't agree with you more. Like when you actually put down those steps and actually physically write it down or put it in the computer, and you're just looking at it, it's profound. It just has it's whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but when you do that, like you're saying, it's more.
I had to make some lifestyle changes, over the years to be able to keep up with the schedule that I want to keep up with. There's so many things I want to do, and I'm so excited about doing everything. I had to, I stopped drinking alcohol. I never drank all that much, but like just having a beer after the gig. And I remember one morning I just woke up and I could still kind of feel it in my gut, and it's like, okay, you know what? That's actually not something that's giving me energy. It's slowing me down just that little bit. So I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And then, same thing with coffee. It's like, that's actually slowing me down, so I'm not going to do it. etc. And every morning, I get up really early. I get up, between 3:30 and 4:30 in the morning. But I don't start working. I that's an hour for me to replenish myself and keep myself strong and fortified.
Wow, okay.
So I do, a little bit of some exercising, some yoga, and some meditation, and nothing else.
Wow.
That's what I do. And if I don't, I kind of fall apart. Because I can't keep up the same kind of energy if I don't do that.
Wow.
So these are the things that I've kind of learned along the way. There's certainly times like right now I'm sleeping, 4 hours a night kind of thing, and then there are other moments where I'll sleep for 8-9 hours, and that's the time to re-fortify and hibernate a little bit, and you have to just be in tune and aware with what your body needs and what your spirit needs. It's not being too rigid about one particular thing just because you said so.
Yeah.
It's being a little bit more in tune with what the cycles are.
Very inspiring. That's impressive. 2 quick questions. I know you got to get going, and we sure appreciate your time so much today. What's on the horizon in terms of your solo projects? You have anything in mind that's coming up?
I got all kinds of stuff in mind. The most immediate project is going to be another large jazz ensemble album on the scope of Kaleidoscope Eyes, with that's going to have significant social importance to some things that are happening in our country right now.
God bless.
Yeah, just I mean, I'm not a political person at all, but I do believe we're in equality and diversity, and that we're all made of the same stuff. So it's a little social comment on some of these things. And we're going to record it here in Miami, which is going to be fun.
Oh, nice.
First one done here. So that'll come out in the fall.
Wow, awesome. Look forward to that. And then my last question is, what do you tell your graduating class in 5 months? What's your final thoughts to them? As they have obviously gotten all your insight and knowledge as being students, but what's your send-off to them in terms of advice?
Yeah, I mean, it's an accumulation, of course, of their whole time here. And, I think that one of the main things is to always keep the passion, the excitement. I'm a firm believer of whatever your actions are, if they're not filled with passion and excitement, they're probably not going to go very far. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying you can't. You still have to pay your taxes. Like you still got to go through that process,
right.
But you have to trick yourself in a way to figure out how to find the excitement about it. Can I figure out how to make this really fun? And find little mischievous ways to. I'm not trying to cheat on my taxes. I'm not saying that, but can I find little ways that make it fun for me? Categories and just organization of it. Can you find an excitement about putting this together? No matter what it is, whatever you go after, just do it with every ounce of passion and excitement that you can, because life's too short otherwise. There's a certain practicality to it. I mean, that's what the whole manifestation thing is, right? It's like you've got the thought. You've got the thought. You know what you want to do. You have the intention, but it's just a thought. And then what makes it real is the feeling that you attach to, or the emotion. Mm-hmm. Like fire. You can say, okay, I know the word fire, I kind of know what it looks like, but then you feel what it is, and that it burns you, and it can burn you. It needs to be a controlled fire. Okay, I mean, I know the emotion attached to what fire is. I know the actual feeling of it, and then all of a sudden it's real. So that's what you have to keep in mind as you manifest through your whole life is keeping those two things together. When you're conceived, the first thing that's created is the brain, right? It's this amazing tool, just an amazing, powerful tool that we're just starting to grasp the technology of it. But left to itself, it's just a tool.
Yeah.
But the heart, which is the feeling, the emotion, if you can live with your heart, lead by your heart. I'm not saying by your emotions. I'm just saying, from the feeling, the integrity of who you are, and then let the tool of the brain complete that function of the heart, then that's when things really align. It's four things. I mean, it's four things. It's living with immense gratitude for every moment, and being present. This moment that I'm with you, I'm not 5 minutes ago, I'm not 5 minutes ahead. I'm just here with you, and I'm so grateful to have this time with you and to share it with your audience. That real palpable, you can feel it, the gratitude of just being in the now. No matter what it is, the challenge, whatever, you're grateful for that challenge.
Right.
And then humility, knowing that, taking the ego out of it and serving some higher good. When I'm leading this department or leading a band or whatever, I'm in service to that. I'm completely in service. I try to take on that kind of humility. It has nothing to do with me. I'm just here in service. Whatever gifts I've been given, whatever, and the gift may be that fire that I have, that's to be of service. And then the third thing is integrity, to just never stray from your own integrity of who you are. When you've been beaten up, and you're down on the dirty pavement and it's raining, and nothing's going right, you don't have a friend in the world, you still know who you are. You still know what your gifts are. It's kind of that's integrity. To get up and you know who you are. And then the humility on the other side is like when you've won the award and you're at the top of whatever, you also know who you are. Right? It's like staying right in the middle, humility and integrity. And then the third one, which it really, when I realized what that meant, it put everything into place for me, is living with those philosophies, but with no expectation. With you can have goals and have intentions, that's awesome, and be excited for what's to come, but don't hold on to any kind of expectation, because that's an illusion.
Wow. Well, John, I can't thank you enough. This has been I'm energized and inspired. I hope all of you feel the same way. It's been fantastic, and you certainly do live by those principles. You're an example of it. It's you talk the talk and walk the walk, as they say. So
I appreciate you saying so.
But thank you, John. Thanks so much for your time today, and for all you do for music and your students and us as brass players. It's inspiring, and we're grateful to you. So thank you for that. And I hope once again everybody enjoyed this month, and we will see you next time on Bone2Pick.